Good afternoon. Welcome again to another edition of MCO at Home. I'm Bruce Lim, and today we have a very special guest, and she is no other than Miss Sandy Wu, who is the Malaysia Singapore Commercial Regional General Manager. That's a very long title for you, Sandy. Anyway, welcome to the program. So I knew you, Sandy, as the General Manager of Beletime Mall in Johor Bahru before you took on additional responsibilities and as responsible for Country Gardens operations and business in this region, right? So right now in your new capacity, what do you do? What do you take care of? Can you give us an idea?
Before I was the general manager of the Beletime shopping mall only. So after last year, we successfully opened the Beletime. So my company gave me the more duties. So now I'm in charge of the whole Malaysia and Singapore regions commercial for our country garden groups. That means I'm not only in charge of the Beletime, but also in charge of the Forest City and Lake City, Diamond City, and then we have the Central Park. So all under my wings now, and then also plus another accommodation service apartment company called Big Plus. I believe you already experienced our accommodation.
Yeah, I was there last month. It's a really nice place in Danga Bay. Thank you. Carry on.
Okay, so that's basically that's what I'm doing now.
Right. So major responsibilities. Your scope has just increased many fold, but this new responsibility catches you at a very interesting and extraordinary times, which is the COVID-19 pandemic and the MCO. I understand you were caught in China's lockdown. During the Lunar New Year, you came back to Malaysia, or rather you returned to Johor and isolated yourself and came out of it into a Malaysian MCO, right?
Yes.
Very interesting times, and especially more so since it's so challenging for malls. So I'm just going to zoom in on Beletime Mall. You had a great launch earlier last year. Congratulations. But then, how has business been? Take us through that.
You mean the better times?
That's right.
Oh, actually, it is not only a challenging times for me, but impacted different to the global economics and different categories of business in Malaysia or Singapore regions. When China had the first COVID-19 exploded in 8 January, I was in China, as you mentioned about it. I'm deeply feel the impact and experience the down part of the city, and all people are living with the conscience. On the moment, I knew this virus might impact the rest of the world. I was wishing Malaysia shouldn't be influenced too badly, but it was still too early to fully assess the outbreak impact on that time. So I was a little bit worried. So I immediately called my team back to Malaysia when I was in China, and then I asked them to prepare for this wave's gonna come and impact our mall. So fortunately, because we are basically we are from China, so we more conscious about this virus than the rest of the world back to them. So we already immediately take the actions, like we start to do the temperature measures for customers whoever get into our mall, and we ask our employees to wear the facial mask.
Right, that's great, because you obviously looked at, you were very prepared when you came back to Malaysia, and you started to implement a few measures that were, I think you were the first to, you mentioned take temperature and make available sanitizers, which are best practice that you have brought from China. but you have also taken one of the few, I think you were the first to offer rental rebates even before the MCO was announced, because you saw the fall in footfall due to, you know, the scare and apprehension concerning the virus. Can you take us, what went through your mind? Was this implemented in China, rental rebates? Because you obviously not only care for your walk-in customers, but for your tenants as well. Take us through what was on your mind.
I'm fully aware that this pandemic deeply impacts all our tenants' business, even though we are also suffering from it. However, as a responsible international company, we believe support our tenants is the key to get through this tough time together. We trust our tenants will try their best to do the business with us after this tough period. We believe both parties should work together holistically to mitigate the business challenge.
Right. So you have engaged your walk-ins, your tenants. How are your tenants taking it?
I think they are grateful for our actions even before the MCO started.
Right. But
because,
can you continue to bear this brunt? I mean, this MCO, it's expected to end, but then there are also talks that it may be extended. What is your take on that?
For that part, our group is already fully prepared, and we already make a decision we're gonna waive the whole MCO period rental for our tenants in order to hand to hand to get through this tough time.
Do you think other malls are able to follow what you are doing? Because there are some malls that have come forward, right? And some who are still holding back. So what are your views from the perspective of
I don't know the other malls whether they would do the same or not, because basically we just as what I mentioned last year when I was in the MRCA's annual meetings, right? I said Country Garden as the big group, we take fully responsibilities with our partners, whoever work with us. Even though we are not that strong and big in Malaysian market, but we will grow and we will hand in hand with our tenants. And we wanted to show our tenants to have that faith. And we are very appreciative whoever give us the support at the first place from last year. So I can't just say the other mall should do the same thing, because a different company has a different policy, and they probably also, based on what I know, we are suffering a lot because of this pandemic things. We still holding there and still to try our best to help our tenants, because we have the faith that the business has to be a mutual way. We both put the effort on it, then we can get through these things together.
Right. So aside from your malls, because Country Garden obviously is landlord to many other properties as well in Malaysia and Singapore. How about commercial properties? Are you giving rental rebates for that as well? And what about residential?
Oh, the residential, it's a different part, will be in charge of by the different part of the management. So it's not my words to say anything for them.
Right. What about the other commercial properties?
As what I'm living inside of our own properties here, I can only tell you my feeling of our company's service here, because we not only sell the properties, but we also do the property management by our own company as well. Right. So for all the things they've done, I think before there's a rumors about us, about the Danga Bay or Forest City said, oh, this because they are all Chinese, so it's probably the most dangerous place to go. But turns out at this, especially during this MCO period, and our both projects turns out the most safe place to stay, because Chinese are more cautious about this virus things. We take more actions to prevent and to protect our residents, whoever living here, and we provide an excellent service for our residents. For example, I'm staying in my apartment for almost 3 weeks already. So when I wanted to order something, and then our property management service team, they can just pick up my order and deliver the food in front of my door. So it's much safer and convenient.
Right. What are the SOPs or operating procedures, regarding safety that you have implemented in your properties as well? Other than delivery.
For everyone who ever get into our properties, first of all, you have to be a registered resident here. Otherwise, you can't get in during the MCO period. And then whoever go out and get in, and then we will measure your temperature. And once you get in, then you have the sanitizer, and all the lift, they have the sanitizer and the tissue. Then you don't need to touch the bottle with your own fingers. So you can through the tissue, right, the paper, they can touch it. So it's more safety. And then they will do the spray, the antivirus spray twice a day.
Excellent. So these are some of the measures that we see on video, of what's implemented in China, and it's great to see you finally bringing those best practices in Malaysia. Does this practice that you have implemented have any traction at all with your tenants? Are they grateful, or do you have grouses of them seeking to leave? You mentioned it's all about negotiation, engaging with your tenants. What is their feedback on these steps that you have taken?
I think the feedback so far from the tenants, and I think they start to realize how responsible we are, and then we are not like just a landlord just who's collected the rental only, but also we do take care of them. At the beginning of this whole thing, even not getting to the MCO period yet, we sit down and talk with each of the tenants, and then we collect their data, we analyze these sales every day, and then we help them, especially who needs the help most, and we start to try our best to do the marketing promotion with them and help them and give them our idea to how to operate and how can we help them besides the waive the rental, because we believe the rental is one part, but the most important thing for our tenants is bring the business back and help them to grow their business.
Okay, so we've talked about rental, your strategies, re-engagement with your tenants. How has it affected your people that's working under your group, since they are all obviously working from home?
Yeah. As I said just now, the control measure has been set by the government to matter is being affected or whatever it is. The controlling will be in full force, as our priority is always our people safe. I assume that in the future, person who can handle multiple tasks will be the most needed staff. Therefore, we do arrange many online training courses to improve our staff's professional skills. In fact, I think this is a perfect time to for us to review our work, what we've done right, what we need to do to improve, then find a solution for all those flaws.
Very, very interesting. So you're putting steps within your organization as well as external. Are these your practices that you have brought in from China? Can you just share a little bit of a comparative analysis of what's the difference between these strategies that are being implemented in China? How are they different from them being executed over here in Malaysia? What's the difference culturally from the point of policy and culture?
You mean the?
Are there difference in implementation in China and Malaysia? What is the reaction from those implementation?
You mean the our staff things?
Yes, either your staff, your tenants. How is China different from Malaysia, or similar?
Yeah. There's some of the similarities from the business point of view. The tenants, the reactions, their needs, and their requirements are similar. But the differences between China and Malaysia, say China is for some of the tenants or business models, they can actually also working on the online business during that lockdown time. But that needs a massive logistic systems.
Right.
That's the differences between Malaysia and China, because China does has this logistic systems, but the Malaysia doesn't have it. So the online business and the model is quite different.
Oh, you're talking about the ecosystem with regards to delivery, packaging. And the ecosystem surrounding e-commerce.
The national wide.
Thank you very much. Again, on the difference between China and Malaysia, how is China right now? I think the curve has flattened. The situation in China, a few cities in China has already reported 0 new cases for a number of days, and the lockdown has been lifted. But we read that consumers are still not returning to malls, they are still not patronizing restaurants, and business didn't actually go back to usual. So what do you think account for this, and will this also happen in Malaysia?
It's not easy actually for on the current part of the situation. We do have some meeting with the government recently and requested for the assistance on several measures to preserve cash flow and maintain employment. So we have no layoffs and retainers and tenants. Ongoing online marketing and promotion programs are planned, and now with the standing and current scenarios to support attendance during the lower period. Cautious measure for everyone definitely will still here, but all of us just do our part.
Right, and do you think Malaysia also will experience a similar scenario as well as apprehension, about against for social distancing, against group events? Do you think what do you think will the situation in Malaysia be?
I think Malaysia government so far is doing a quite good job compared to the rest of the world, especially like what happening, we've all seen those days, what happening in the United States and Europe. So
right.
Compared to them, I think Malaysia government does a really good job.
So what are your plans right now for the mall? I'm just talking about the mall before we move on to the bigger responsibilities. What are your plans for the mall post MCO as the economy and businesses are trying to survive and basically return to the path of normal? Do you think we will ever return? What are your steps to ensure a soft landing, survival until we see a turnaround? What are your plans?
Well, I think it takes time. It does take time to recovery. That, for example, when I was 2003, when the SARS hit into China and
right.
all the business was being impacted deeply, I do remember that was my first year to get into the career life. And then I had that experience in the commercial world, and it was taking around half years to fully recover the whole business. So it does take time, but that means I believe that stay positive and have an open mind setting, and to face all the barriers that you need to do it, and then take some tactic actions to recover your business. That's very important. And you have to have the faith to do all those things. For our malls, we're gonna hand in hand with our tenants and to try our best to attract the people back to the mall. But of course, the first thing, it's always going to be our customers and the tenants, our staff. They say safety. It's our priorities. There's no doubt for that. But besides that, then we will take some of the actions and launch some of safety. We think it's a safety activities for the customer can attend to, and then in order to recover our business little by little. These things you can't do it in a rush way.
Right. So you are saying will there be a new normal? Will things ever return to what it used to be? And what would that new normal be?
It will.
In terms of the customers, the walk-ins, and the tenants, what will be the new normal be?
I think there's definitely during this pandemic things, and I think will definitely improve some of the business model in Malaysia. For example, the online business is definitely will be boosted because of this virus things.
So do you think that online e-commerce it's going to be a threat to your offline malls, or is it going to be complementary, and why?
It's going to be a complementary things, because we've seen this in China. It happened 5 years ago. Everybody was worried about that the shopping mall gonna be impacted by the online shopping. And then I remember there's a bet between Jack Ma and Wang Jianling, who's Wanda's CEO, and they were both like said, "Oh, I'm gonna beat you, and you're gonna beat me, right?" But in the end, they are actually merged. They work together. And this is how it happened in China at the same time. And online actually is boosting the business of the offline. And it's a kind of like cooperating together. Eventually, the people will say, "Oh, that's why I was last year. I think we had this conversation, and I said I strongly believe the community shopping mall gonna be the new hit for the market, not like a central or regional mall anymore. Because, for example, if I buy something from online, but especially for the fashion part, but I don't know the materials, the fabrics, I don't know the size, whether it's suit for me. I can actually just go to a community mall where it's near to me, probably by driving is 5 minutes. And then I already can pick up my stuff I bought from online, and I can try the clothes at the same time. If it's not suit for me, I can just exchange in the store. So actually it's bring the people get into the mall more often than before. This is what is happening in China.
Great. Now, you mentioned something very interesting about the bet between Wang Jialin and Ma Yin, and that led to this thing. But I suspect a lot of that cooperation has got to do with, I suspect, government intervention. China has got a very, very strong government, policy, and they participate quite actively in trade. Do you see that happening in Malaysia? I think we are a little bit more liberal when it comes to intervention by the government. But speaking of government, what do you think? Because you talked about tough times for everyone, and everyone needs to play their role. You know, people have got less money to spend. Businesses, your tenants have got trouble doing business because of the MCO and post that, and you as a landlord also will need to share in the burden. Do you think you have a fair share of the slice of that 250 billion economic stimulus package? And today it has been enhanced for SME. What are your views on that?
To be honest, I haven't really studied the policies just launched. I think it's just launched hours ago.
Yeah, about an hour ago.
Yeah. Sorry, I haven't really started it.
But there was another one that subsidizes workers' wages and availability of loans. Do you think you could avail to some of these assistance that is provided?
I think some of them will feel like it's being supported by the government. That's the truth. But I think the government might not just only focus on the people with no income, but also the enterprises, the corporations, the companies are also like small and medium-sized companies, even like size as us. We are also suffering with this pandemic things. So I think government should consider about the coupling as well.
Correct. So what you're saying is it benefits your tenants, and indirectly it sort of benefits you because they will.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Right. So now let's move on to your bigger platform beyond the mall at Country Garden Group's operations in Malaysia and Singapore. So what's the story there? Give us an update on your latest baby. You mentioned, Diamond City, that's in the Klang Valley. So your scope has actually expanded. So what are your grand plans in your current role?
As a regional commercial management, we aim to potentially tap into the millions of overseas tourists as well as local tourists. Upcoming, we will launch our Forest City landmark with a commercial as one of the top tourism contributor. It will help solidify our position as one of the best and must-go destination in the region. More commercial units will be as our upcoming big hits, such like Lake City commercials.
So obviously this pandemic and social distancing policy would have, I would say, put a spanner in the works, because you mentioned tourism many times, and we know tourism, hospitality, these are industries that are badly hit. So do you see these as, what do you think of this?
Air
travel, nobody's traveling right now. So what are you doing right now, in the short term, and how are you going to wade through this time before the recovery takes place?
We are actually doing all because for example, for the landmark, we are doing we are still on the planning phase. So we are adjust our positioning and the attendance mix, everything in order for the futures, the whole project's launched. We are not planning to launch it for this year, so we still have time for prepare for the launch.
Okay, so you have taken a more medium to long-term view on these projects.
Yes.
Perhaps you can give us an insight in terms of international trade, because I understand you are talking to Koreans, you're talking to the Thais, you're talking to many partners from different parts of the region, right? Mm-hmm. Can you share, your experience in terms of international trade amongst the different economies? What needs to be done to reopen the borders? Because right now China is recovering, Malaysia is in the midst of it. Probably we are at a peak. Some other countries, they are just experiencing the start. So how do you juggle these different events that are taking place in different parts of the world?
As global companies have to be predictive and proactive in their decision making to preserve a business continuity and build enterprise resilience. Ongoing COVID-19 crisis, there are a number of the key issues corporate leaders should be thinking about it, as well as steps they can take to not only react to the serve business shocks now, but also reshape the business and plan for the recovery. Few priorities for business leaders to consider, mainly based on the perspectives and experience from our HQ China and other countries in Asia where COVID-19 first impacted. Prioritize people safety and continuous engagement, communication with the relevant business plans, assess the financial and operational risk and response quickly, maximizing the use government support policies, build resilience in preparation for the new normal.
Right, so that's a long list to comply to, but how optimistic are you, in terms of recovering? You mentioned 6 months. Why 6 months? Which country you think will be taking the lead, and which country you think have the best practice we can learn from? You are a regional player. Perhaps you can give us an insight into what's happening out there and who we can sort of follow, in order to benefit more during this trying time.
As you know that Country Garden is based in China, it's come from China, it's a Chinese company. And yes, the pandemic is actually started from China, but now because our government, they did a really great job by stopping this outbreak inside of China. So now the whole China are recovering now, and then the businesses start to reopen again. And so we will see what the Chinese market is going to react for this pandemic things. But also with this global crisis, it's not only one country can do things, and this is definitely globalizing things. So all the country has to put efforts together and acting on the same direction in order to restart the whole business again. So I think there's some. I'm not saying that China is the best model you can learn from, but so far some of the strategies and some of the business they are doing is actually a good model to study for it.
Such as?
Some of we are reopen the whole market, but state by state, and we still very strict on the measure of the in terms of the people's safety. And for example, the restaurants are opening, and people are actually rush back to the restaurant.
Are they?
Not like
right.
Some of the, as well as I know that I talked to my personal friend, and they were like, I just want to go back to the restaurant and eat whatever, I've been wanted to for the past 2 months. But for the shopping mall or restaurant, they have a very strict measure, and then they you can only book the online with the exactly timing you're gonna arrive there, and then they will put you in the table that with the distance.
Right.
So
that's
this
the new
is
normal.
kind of this kind of the strategy we can actually learn from them. within this recovery period.
Okay, great. So as a Malaysian SME, small medium enterprise, as a business owner and entrepreneur, what advice do you want to give to them out there? They could be your potential tenants. They could be Malaysian business owning Malaysian brands. They could be traders. What is your message to them to survive and to overcome this pandemic and recover and eventually bounce back?
I think first of all, I think you should be evaluate the short-term liquidity, assess the financial and operational risk and respond quickly, consider alternative supply action options, and determine how the COVID-19 crisis affected the budget and the business plan. And also, I think the most important thing is that you have to have the faith and stay positive, stay calm. Because you have to know that this thing's eventually gonna be end. Then you analyze whatever you have and what kind of a plan you can do it for the future, for after the post-crisis time.
Thank you. I like that word, positive. And on that note, I would like to, again, thank you for spending your evening with us on this program. And it's been an immense pleasure meeting you and having you over here, Sandy.
Thank you. It's my honor.
Right. And yeah, thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Miss Sandy Wu, who is the Malaysia-Singapore Commercial Regional General Manager for the Country Garden Group. And with that, I wish all of you a productive week ahead, and stay positive and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.